50 times already. All right. So for trimming on the wheel, you're going to need your pot, obviously. You're going to need some wet clay, like not like just clay that's not like hard, because we're going to take our pot and we're going to attach it to the wheel. Okay. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to do this upside down. And you want to try to center your pot on the wheel. So I'm going to lightly, like low, turn the wheel on. Not so my pot's flying all over the place, but just a little bit to kind of see if it's in the middle. So it's not quite in the middle, but then again, my pot is not quite centered anyway. So I'm going to kind of like tap on it to try to get it in the middle. Okay. Don't be that guy, wheel. Okay. And then I'm going to take my clay once I feel I'm like happy with where it is, and I'm going to put pieces of clay. I don't have to seal the whole thing in. I'm just putting pieces of clay around to just kind of like lock it in. Okay. And as I'm doing that, try not to move it off center. Okay. So I'm going to just take a couple pieces of clay, put it around. Okay. All right. So if you guys look at the top of my pot here, like this bottom thing is like all like crazy. There's like a lip to it. I want to get rid of that. So the tools you guys are going to be using, I have them over there. Use the dark brown handled ones because these are newer and they're sharper and it shouldn't give you a problem. But these are called, it's like a ribbon tool is I think the actual proper name for it. But it's going to allow you to kind of cut away the clay to give yourself a nice foot. So if you think of this area here, oh man, I forgot to do something. Let's try this again. Before you put it on the wheel, I forget to do this too. You want to look at the inside of your pot. And you want to kind of judge where your floor of your pot is. Okay? So if I'm like looking, it's probably about like here on the side of my pot. So that's going to give me an idea of how much clay I have to remove, that I can remove without ripping the bottom of my pot off. And you also want to pay attention to what your inside curvature of your pot is. Thank you. You want to pay attention to the inside curvature of your pot because then that'll also give you an idea of where the clay is. So like I know that I have a lot of clay right here in the edge that I could remove before hitting the inside of my pot. Okay, so I'm going to put this back on here now that I have that idea. Okay. So I'm going to remove the edge here. I want to try and lighten the bottom of my pot. I'm going to remove this edge, and then I'm going to remove in the middle here. So have you guys ever seen like the bottom of like a cup or whatever, so it has that like little ridge around the outside and then the inside kind of inset? That's what we're going to try and do. So I'm going to start with my big guy here. If my wheel was on, that would be great. Come on. Okay. So you have to have like kind of a steady hand, okay? And I'm going to start putting pressure, and all these little ribbons are going to come off. So you can see how those ribbons are coming off nice and cleanly. If your piece is too wet, the thing is going to like be jumping around. So if it's too soft, like you have to wait for it to be like hard enough. So mine is kind of like the right hardness. But I'm going to start to remove some of this clay on the outside. And I want to get it to like a 45, since it's really dry, that's why it's nice. I want to get it to like a 45-degree angle. Okay, but I'm trying to like clean this up. And if there's any errors with the outside of your pot, you can fix them now. But just be careful, because you don't want to rip the bottom off of your pot. And use both tools, whichever one works better for you. Like I have this kind of like bump on the outside here that I could probably get rid of. I'm trying to go a little at a time. I'm just pressing lightly. Okay. And then for the bottom, you're only working on one spot. So as the wheel turns through it, that's how everything's kind of coming off. So if I'm working here, I want to make sure the bottom of my pot is flat. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of all that gunk on the bottom. Okay, and then I'm going to make my inset. So I'm going to take my little tool, and I'm going to kind of go like maybe 1 centimeter or 2 from the edge, and I'm just going to press down slowly. And it's going to make a little circle. Okay, and this is making the foot of my pot. So knowing how much clay I have to remove is going to help me, because now I'm not going to go through the middle, right? But I know how much clay I can take away from here safely. Okay, and then I'm going to slowly bring that in to the middle. Like you see how these little ribbons of clay are coming off nice? If you're having an issue and like it's getting caught up, that means it's just too wet, and you just got to give it a chance to dry out a little bit more. Or like leave the pot out for a class period, and then try and trim it the next class period, because then maybe it'll be dry enough. Okay. Want to have a nice kind of flat inside here. So I'm going to try and just slowly get rid of all those little ridges. So my pot, I can tell that my rim is slightly uneven because of the way my pot is kind of like waving a little bit as I'm trimming it, which I'm fine with that. I want to just try and make sure this bottom is nice and flat. And worst case scenario, we could try and fix the rim, but you're really only fixing the bottom for trimming. Okay, if I wanted to, so that's my nice trimmed foot. I'm gonna go, there's still some gunk in here. Okay, it's my trimmed foot. I can now go, and if I wanted to, I could add some decoration or something to the side here. So if I wanted to add like cuts gently, I could add okay, so I added, seriously, these wheels are not turning off, driving me crazy. But like, I just added some cuts into the side here for like a texture. So if I wanted to do that, so now it has like a little bit here, so then when I glaze it, the glaze will settle in those cuts differently. If you want to, now that my pot is trimmed, what I could do is I can, if I wanted to carve into this, I could. So if I wanted to, I could take like a tool and sit there and make like a design on the outside. If you want to, if your pot's not too dry, you can add a handle to it. Whatever you want to do, but it needs to have at least trimmed bottom like this. Okay, so the trim bottom has to be trimmed because it gets rid of all that extra gunky clay that's at the bottom. And now that I'm feeling this, I could still go in more. I could cut out like a whole bunch more. I still feel like it's a little weedy at the bottom, but you want to get rid of that extra clay at the bottom there and at the middle here. Okay, it also just cleans up the pot nice. Like this looks a lot nicer than when it had that flange of gross, like when we got it off the wheel. Okay, so that's how you trim. And then for cleaning up, you're going to take this clay, the wet clay, and you're just going to put it back in the bag where you got it from. And like all these little carvy bits, all these little bits and things, you're gonna just put, see I have these little confetti shavings. Okay, what I can do is I can just take these and put them in the slip bucket. Okay, so I can just put them in one thing and then just put them in the slip bucket over there, and then they'll like disappear. Okay, but that is trimming. So if anyone's ready to trim and they want to trim today, you're more than welcome. If your stuff is not ready to trim and you want to wait another day, you can do that too. But 6 wheels ready for trimming. I'll get the trimming tools for you guys out, and that's it. All right, thank you guys.